Hi, I'm Dan and welcome to Polar Currency and video number 11. Alright, full disclosure on this video. I'm rebooting the second segment, small size gold certificates, from my first video and making it into video number 11. Why I'm doing this? Well, one, I'm lazy. Two, I should have split my first video because I know my videos get a bit long, but you know I like a good sidebar. And number three, according to YouTube analytics, only 30% of the audience viewed the small size gold certificate section anyways, meaning 70% didn't see it, and it's really a good story. And finally, four, I said I would try to put up a video out every 2 weeks, and last month I've gotten a bit behind. All right, enough of my blathering. Let's get to the story of small size gold certificates reboot.
Gold certificates were issued by the United States Treasury as a form of representative paper currency from 1865 to 1934. While the United States was on the gold standard, the certificates offered a more convenient way to pay in gold than the use of coins. Gold certificates were first authorized under the Legal Tender Act of 1863, but not printed and issued until 1865. There were three main reasons gold certificates were needed as paper currency. One, to promote and keep the flow of gold coming into the U.S. Treasury. This was needed to help maintain the credit of the government to pay for the Civil War. 2. Legal limitations of United States notes, also known as legal tender notes, which at the time were the only form of circulating paper currency. United States notes could not be used to pay custom duties or interest on the federal debt, thereby limiting the amount of hard currency coming into the U.S. Treasury. United States notes were a fiat currency, not backed by any hard currency, silver or gold. This is a story by itself that has way too many rabbit holes. And finally, number 3. Gold and silver are kinda heavy. 16 $20 coins weigh 1 pound, making it difficult to transport in large quantities. From 1879 until their elimination in 1933, gold certificates were identical in value to the same denomination of any U.S. currency type. On April 5, 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102 that removed the dollar from the gold standard and outlawed any ownership of gold in any form. The executive order read in part, forbidding the hoarding of gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates within the continental United States. The executive order was part of the amended Emergency Banking Act of 1933. The main rationale behind Executive Order 6102 was to remove the constraint on the Federal Reserve, which was prevented from increasing the money supply during the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 required that 40% of all issued Federal Reserve notes were backed by gold. By the onset of the Great Depression, the Federal Reserve had almost reached the limit of allowable credit. It took over 4 decades and 4 presidential administrations to repeal most of Roosevelt's Executive Order 6102. It began with private ownership of gold certificates, which was legalized by a U.S. Treasury Department memo dated April 1964 during LBJ's administration. This removed all restrictions on the holding and acquisition of gold certificates that were issued by the United States government prior to January 30, 1934. In August of 1971, President Richard Nixon abandoned the gold standard entirely. The limitation of gold ownership in the U.S. was completely repealed when President Gerald Ford signed a bill to permit U.S. citizens to purchase, hold, and sell gold, taking effect December 31, 1974. And finally, in October of 1977, the 1933 resolution was amended to allow gold clauses for all contracts. And to be completely honest, I don't know what that last one really means, but it sounded really final. It's no surprise that all large-size currency types have so much more than today's modern banknotes. Modern currency doesn't compare to the artwork, design detail, character, and changing portraits of the old large-size currency. But gold certificates? They stand alone with the gold treasury seal, gold serial numbers, and most of all the distinctive goldfish orange ink color used for the backs. But when all currency was reduced in size and issued in July of 1929, series dated 1928-29, all that went away from circulating currency. The new small-size currency designs all followed the same basic format. Federal Reserve notes, United States notes, silver certificates, national bank notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, and gold certificates were now all uniform in design. And sadly, the green replaced the goldfish-colored ink for the backs of gold certificates. My collection of small-size Series 1928 gold certificates are good examples of the eye appeal I look for in notes that begin to go up in value. I just have the 10 through 100. The large denominations are just a bit out of my price range unless I want to sell my car or a child. Interesting that a Series 1928A was printed between February 1932 and March 1933 for just the 10s and 20s, but never issued as a result of Roosevelt's 1933 executive order. According to the Whitman Encyclopedia of U.S. Paper Money, there is speculation that these notes were not destroyed and believed to be stored at the U.S. Treasury to this day. The short-run series was issued for circulation from only 1929 to 1933 and matched the existing Federal Reserve denominations, including the $500, $1,000, $5,000, and $10,000 bills. Curiously, only the 500 has the large value print on the right. The other notes are just left blank. The Federal Reserve notes have the Treasury seal in this place. The Series 1928 $1,000 gold certificate ranks number 76 on the 100 Greatest American Notes authored by Q. David Bowers and David M. Sundman. The reverse of the 1928 gold certificates were identical to all currency types, but the goldfish orange reverse colors did make a comeback, just not for public circulation, with 4 denominations printed in 1934. With the 1933 Executive Order 6102 in place, making it illegal for any private citizen to possess gold certificates, there was still a need for transactions between federal banks. This resulted in part the need for passing of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, allowing the issue of a special series of gold certificates to account for gold held by the Federal Reserve banks on behalf of the United States. The act read that the Secretary of the Treasury is authorized to prescribe the form and denominations of the certificates. That Secretary of the Treasury was Henry Morgenthau, Jr., who selected the existing denominations of 100, 1,000, and 10,000, creating the Series 1934 gold certificates, where the front design almost mirrors the circulating Series 1928. The redemption statement is different, and there is now the large denomination value printed on the open right side. However, a new $100,000 denomination bearing the portrait of President Woodrow Wilson was added. Wilson was most likely placed on the note because he was the president who signed into law the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, creating the Federal Reserve System. The Series 1934 $100,000 gold certificate is the largest denomination ever issued for U.S. currency. 42,000 were printed between December 18, 1934 and January 9, 1935. All of the surviving $100,000 notes have been accounted for and have either been destroyed or buried in some U.S. Treasury bunker. You can still see several examples. An uncut partial sheet of 12 specimen notes is on display at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, along with a handful of notes at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the Smithsonian Institution, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. The use and need for the Series 1934 gold certificates eventually ended in the 1960s. All 4 denominations of the Series 1934 gold certificates were only issued to facilitate internal government transactions with the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve System, and none were allowed to be distributed to the public. The redemption statement at the top and bottom of the certificates reflect the 1934 gold certificate purpose. This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America, dollar amount, in gold payable to bearer on demand as authorized by law. To this day, the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 makes it illegal for any private individual to possess any of the Series 1934 gold certificates. The 1928 gold certificates are fine, but not the 1934s. So, you won't be hearing any collector admitting to possessing any of the Series 1934 gold certificate denominations.
Well, that's it for video number 11. I hope you understand the reboot and enjoyed the story of the small-sized gold certificates and the end of a unique and beautiful part of U.S. paper currency history. If you like what you see, please hit the thumbs up button and feel free to leave a comment, even if you're bagging on me for splitting up a video. We'll see you in 2 weeks with large-size Federal Reserve banknotes explained. Thanks for checking in.